What's the purpose of being financially secure if you aren't going to enjoy the security, if you aren't going to enjoy the freedom that comes with it? Welcome back to Unfiltered Yaps. If this is your first time, thank you so much for joining me. This is the podcast where we show up for ourselves and for each other. I'm your host, Shanae, and as always, we're going to keep it honest, we're going to keep it messy, and we're going to keep it real. Today, we are talking about finances, and this is not no episode on any get rich quick schemes because I don't know them. And if I did know them, I would be doing them already. This episode is more about the emotions around finances, around spending money, around having money, around what to do with your money. And I'm having this episode because, as always, this is something that is currently present in my own life, and I think we all should be talking about finances and what it means and how it feels, especially, I'm a millennial and today's money is not yesterday. Yesterday's prices are not today's prices, literally. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about my own journey, about the lessons I'm currently learning, lessons I've already learned, and hopefully you guys can get something from that. Um, this week, I asked, what's the hardest money lesson you learned so far? And whew, these responses were like chef's kiss. Like they were really thoughtful, and I appreciate you guys for those thoughtful responses. Our first answer here is emergency funds aren't optional. Life will throw curveballs when you least expect it. For me, I was like, oh, this is like answer number one. And I was surprised that a lot more people didn't say emergency savings because this is one for me that I really had to prioritize. Life will come at you fast and out of nowhere, and like everything will be fine, everything will be perfect. And then all of a sudden, a dog. You have a dog and she needs to go, something isn't right, and you're a, scary dog mom. And so you take her and she gets there and she's fine. And then the vet's like, yeah, that's going to be $800. And it's $800 you didn't put up. It was, $800 you weren't accounting for, and now you are overextending yourself, or you are, using credit cards or whatever to help yourself get through this emergency situation. And like you it's hard. Again, as someone who is like learning these lessons, you often think like it's hard to prepare for what you don't think is going to happen. And that's kind of the point. Like things happen. Like just think about the wildest thing that's ever happened to you before that you weren't prepared for, and you want to prepare for things like that. So if something happened to you and you needed $500 immediately that you didn't have access to, that should be your first goal. I want to make sure I always have at least, $500. And then when you have that, your goal can grow. You can, go from, okay, well, I have 500. If I have a $500 emergency, now I want to make sure I can cover two $500 emergencies. So I'm going to save to 1,000, and so on and so forth, because literally anything can happen at any given moment, and you will be unprepared for it if you don't have an emergency savings. What's the hardest money lesson you've learned so far? Make your own money. Even if you meet someone wealthy who pays the bills, being able to say fuck off is priceless. I am a big advocate for having your own, even if you are married. Like you never know what's going to happen. Um, and it's not even about your partner not having good intentions for you. you just don't know, again, what life is going to throw at you. And you never want to be in a position where you feel stuck or forced to stay somewhere that you don't want to be, because leaving that situation would be an inconvenience for you. You always want to be prepared for anything. My grandma like always tells me, "Oh, make sure you keep money in your wallet because you never know what's going to happen." And she's absolutely right. And the, everything about finances feels like that to me. Make sure you keep something in your wallet because you never know. And people change. And that, again, that's not to say that like the person that you choose to be with, the person that you choose to love is going to turn on you, but you have to be safe. And the easiest way to be safe is to make sure you have something that you could always fall back on. What's the hardest money lesson you've learned so far? Now, this one, whew, it ate me up. Okay. Um, Not this specific example, but the thought process behind the answer. And the answer is, just because you're approved for it does not mean you can afford it. The example that they gave was, you're approved for a $500,000 mortgage, but can you afford 3,500 a month just in the mortgage, on top of the fact that you're going to have other house costs, you're going to have food costs, you're going to have clothes, there's always going to be other bills like electricity, water, etc. And the reason I the reason I say this ate me up is because, you know, just because you are approved, just because you have the credit to be approved, doesn't mean you can actually afford it, because this money isn't yours. Someone is lending you this money. And do you have the bandwidth in your budget to pay them back on top of everything else you have to continue paying, or you're going to have to start paying when you take this on? And a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people are just, especially when it comes to buying homes, I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I qualify for this amount, so I'm going to get a home in this amount. But can you afford a home with a mortgage of that amount? So that was a really good example. Someone said, don't lend money unless you can afford to never get it back. And these were other responses that I thought were in the same vein as this one. And so the other two are, don't let someone borrow money under your name. So using, credit cards, loans, even if they promise to pay you back, because they never do. And the other one I thought went with this was, never, ever, 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 ever co-sign anything for anyone. I do I do think maybe there's some caveats with that. Obviously, if you're married, that's kind of a discussion between you and your partner, I think. But the general census of those responses to me were, don't give something that you are afraid to lose or that you can't live without. Because there are a lot of times you will give money to people, spend money on people, thinking, oh, this person's good for it, or oh, we've been friends for years. I trust them. I know that they wouldn't do me like that. And then they do you like that. And then they do you like that. And if it's a card or something you co-sign, that's on you. Your name, you are just as responsible for whatever as that person is. And that's a really tough spot to be in, because what are you going to do? Not pay it? Because then that fucks you over. That fucks your credit over. If it's a loan of some sort, you know, and God forbid, like, imagine, you co-sign with somebody for something that's $20,000 and you don't have $20,000, but because you co-signed with that person wouldn't have gotten $20,000. And so between the two of you, you were able to get this $20,000, and now you're responsible because they went MIA. And what are you going to do about that? Now, you're filing for bankruptcy or only God knows what, because maybe out of the kindness of your heart or a family obligation or whatever the circumstance, you put your name on the line. And I agree. I think that's a big financial no-no. Um, this is another comment that ate me up, y'all. What's the hardest money lesson you've learned so far? Learning the difference between what you need and what you just want. I'm still battling with this one. Transparently, I grew up in a check to check household for the most part. Um and so I was used to, as a child, asking my mom for something and not getting it. So now as an adult, the inner child in me comes out a lot because, like, the inner child now has access to adult money. I will buy myself things um because I won't tell myself no. And that is one of the hardest financial mindsets that I'm having to learn how to shift out of, because I don't want to feel like I'm depriving myself of anything, but am I depriving myself if it's just a want? If I want it today, does that mean I'm going to want it tomorrow or next week or a month from now or a year from now? And if I wait and not be impulsive, then I can save on top of maybe like my regular savings to get that thing if I truly want it and it's not just a need. Um and then the follow-up answer to that is that it's okay to spend money. Um and the reason I put these together is because I think sometimes when it comes to finances, and I do it as well, I teeter on the, if having your finances together is a spectrum, and on one end of the spectrum, it's I'm frugal and I'm saving every dime that I have. And then on the other spectrum, it's YOLO, I only live once. Like, the money comes back. If I spend this, it'll come back to me tenfold. I'm like a ping pong ball. Like, I will go back and forth. And I saw that comment about it being okay to spend money and was like, yes, people need to be reminded that we are working, we are sacrificing our time in order to earn a living, and earning a living isn't, yes, you want financial security, but that's not all you're living for. What's the purpose of being financially secure if you aren't going to enjoy the security, if you aren't going to enjoy the freedom that comes with it? And so it really is a balance between, again, what you want and what you need. And when it is a want, being okay with setting yourself up in a way that allows you to obtain that thing you want, because it's okay to spend your money. Next, what's the hardest money lesson you've learned so far? Whew, this person in capital letters now, yelling at me and you. Don't spend money you don't have. I have a terrible tendency to count on money I know is coming in. I've learned the hard way not to think of it as my money until it's in my bank account and my bills are paid. And to that, someone responded, and a credit card is money you don't have. I agree with this response. I think, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the, those memes where it's like, the first thing a black person going to do when they get a job is calculate their paycheck. And then you're spending and planning for money that you haven't even seen. You don't know if your calculations are correct. Or even the memes that are like, oh, it's income tax season, and I'm gonna, what y'all doing with y'all money? I'm gonna get a giraffe. I'm gonna, bring Harambe back to life, or whatever those memes say. We're counting our chickens before they hatch, and we might have some duds in there. Um, you think something is coming on this day, and you start making plans, or you start making money. I'm sorry, you start making plans, or you start buying things thinking you're going to get the money right back, and then you don't. Or, God forbid you put your account number in wrong, and now you're waiting for money that you thought was coming that's in somebody else's account, and you have to go through hoops and loops and jump however high the bank says to jump to help you get that back. And who knows, that could take months, and now you've put yourself in a hole because you spent money that you didn't actually have, that you didn't not that you didn't know it was coming, you knew, but you spent it before it was yours to spend. And the same thing with credit cards. Like, it's so easy. I think, especially in the society that we live in today, it is very card focused, very tap focused. It is mind boggling to me how unreal money fit. Like, I, even, okay, I've worked at a bank. I currently work in like marketing, and in both scenarios, I've dealt with like large amounts of money. When I was at the bank, large amounts of money, the money then is very insignificant to the money I'm dealing with now. But even then, it felt like people would come in and be like, "Oh yeah, I want to take out $10,000. Yeah, I want to do a wire for $100,000." And I was like, "This can't be real." People are swiping their cards, and I'm like, "Oh, how can I help you today?" And I'm looking at their accounts, and like, these numbers can't be real. Like, especially because everything is so digitized. I think it would be different if they were like, "Okay, if I pulled out a box and it was like, okay, in your savings, let me open this. You have, oh, it's $30,000 in here." And they're like, "Okay, take out 10,000 of that and give it to me." That would feel more real, I think. But like, I swipe my, it's not embarrassing, but I know my debit card. I can type my debit card number into anything right now, and the money comes out, and it's just like, okay. And if I don't make a conscious effort to check my accounts, I would never know what's going in and out of there because it's so easy to swipe. It's so easy to tap. I think when the world was more cash based, it was my first job. I did have a bank account, but I wasn't like really direct depositing. I was 18. I didn't, not that debit cards weren't a thing in 2012, but I feel like not the way it is now, at least for me. And so I would get my check, I would, go to the bank, I would cash it, and they would give me and then it was like, okay, this is all the money I have for the next 2 weeks. And I'm like taking this money out of my wallet. I'm doing things. I physically see the money. I'm holding the money. It was more tangible. It felt more real. It felt more mine. Not that the money in my account don't feel like mine now, but like, I don't know. There's something different about swiping a card that makes it easier for, again, a credit card, for you to swipe it and be like, okay, you know the my debit card, not that it doesn't feel like mine, but it's like we are conditioned to swipe. So if that doesn't matter if it's a credit card, a debit card, whatever. So swiping any card is easy. Swiping a credit card is easier. And then you have to remember, when I swipe that credit card, I'm borrowing money that I have to give back. And do I have enough money to give back to the person I'm borrowing from? Um, okay. And then the last answer here, what's the hardest money lesson you've learned so far? Take full advantage of as many tax breaks as possible as early as possible. If you can contribute 28K to your retirement account every year, do it now. Invest as much as possible now so you can age comfortably without the stress and retire with confidence. As soon as you get that first 9 to 5 job, max out your HSA, max out your Roth, max out everything. I thought this was an important response to end on because I think when I think about my own financial journey, this is where I'm trying to live and the goals that I'm trying to reach. I am just going to be transparent. I did not learn, I did not have financial literacy. I grew up in a household where you worked, you got paid, you made sure your bills were paid, and then you had whatever was left over. There was no thought, there was no mindset around saving for a rainy day because it was raining right now, because we were trying to survive right now. Um, and that was in the early 2000s. Like, it's not funny. I don't know why I'm laughing, but I remember my grandma would give me $2 and I'd be able to get snacks. I would get breakfast, I would get snacks before school, I would get snacks after school with that $2. And I could not give a kid $2 today and be like, go to the store and have a good time. They're going to get one item. Um, but if my money was stretching that far then as a child, it's easy, I think, to see how my mom or how my grandma were like, okay, bills are paid. The rest of this is for me to do with what I please, basically. And so I didn't have the mindset. I wasn't a good saver because I didn't know anything about saving. No one had ever said to me, get your money and save. Like, all I knew was you get paid, you have bills, you make sure your bills are paid. And that is how we end up in this paycheck to paycheck cycle. Now, I will say my dad is amazing with finances. Like, he's really smart, he's very financially savvy. Um, but I don't think he's ever said like, oh, this is how you save. Like, if I have a financial question, he's the first person I call, will give me the smartest, soundest advice. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I have this money, what should I do with it? Should I do this? Does it make more sense to do that? And like, we will talk through my options, but I don't think we've ever really had a conversation that was like, this is how you save. Like, I don't think anyone explicitly said that to me. And I also think this is something that they should be teaching in school. And I know I said this before. I said this on another episode about regulating your emotions. And I don't mean to put more work on teachers because they do so much already. But I do think financial literacy should start in school. I think it's hard because there's no, while they tried to make it standardized, there's no one standardized way of teaching. And I know that because I went to school in 2 different states. Like, I did my formative years of schooling in 2 different states. And something that was required in one state was not required in the other. Or like, in one state, I had to learn about like the history of the state. I would not have had to learn that here in New York. There is no like New York history class you take. Um and so, I get that it's hard to get everyone on the same page, but like financial literacy is something that we should be learning young. I see a lot of millennial parents on TikTok, you know, give their kids allowances. Like, you do a chore, you earn this amount for doing this chore. And I think that's a good way to for them to learn. Like, okay, you do work for money. And then, you know, some of the parents I see will be like, "Oh, well, you have to charge for, like, I'll charge you to do your laundry." And obviously the parents are like saving this money for them, but it's like teaching them those skills, and I think we need to learn them. We should have learned them. And so, with that said, I am currently in my 30s, and I do feel behind sometimes that I spent my 20s swiping cards, spending money, thinking because, oh, this company wants to give me this card, that I'm, one, financially savvy enough to do it, and two, my credit is amazing, because why else would they give me this card? But it's like, no, they see I'm a spender, and they're going to earn interest off of me because I'm not paying things off immediately, which is a big skill, okay? If you have cards, let's get into the habit of of let's get into the habit of paying it off immediately if you can. Paying more than the minimum balance at bare minimum. But like, I thought the more people wanted to give me cards, the better that I was doing. And that's so stupid. I don't know why that was my mindset, but it was. And, now I think I'm setting myself up to be better. I am using tools that help me. Right now, I use YNAB. And it's I started, maybe like a year or two ago, and I was like, I don't get how this works. And I went back to, like, one thing about me, I always had a budget. Okay. Now I may not have been maxing my budget out to the best of my ability in terms of like, save this much, save for this thing, make a sinking fund for, Christmas presents in January. So I'm not, figuring it out or using cards in December. But once I went to do it again, like January of this year, it really stuck for me. It made sense. It clicked in my brain. And what I really like is it shows you the age of your money. If your money is not making it to, you know, a month, something, I don't want to say something is wrong, but like, you should be concerned about that, because it means that you're spending your money as soon as you get it. And that's what's keeping you in the paycheck to paycheck cycle. You have to find tools that work for you. You have to read books. I was getting ready to say, oh, I hate to say that. And I don't hate to say that, because I love to read. But we pass up on so much knowledge because we always on them phones. We always on them phones. But we pass up on so much knowledge because we're not reading. The answers, the material is there. Um, you just have to, put your best self forward, and search for it, and want to make a change, and want to learn, and want to grow. And I encourage you to think about what it means to be financially stable, to be financially secure, and work towards that dream, and figure out the tools and the things that you need to read and learn, and the people, honestly, that you need to follow. Like, the algorithms that we use are based on the things that we interact with. If you start interacting with people who align with the mindset that you're trying to shift into, that also helps. Um and so, you know, I want you to make progress. I want me to make progress. And you just have to start somewhere. Start, tracking what you're doing with your money. Don't do anything different. I'm not telling you to do anything different. I'm just telling you to track it. You get paid, write down, oh, I paid this thing, I paid this thing, I brought this thing, oh, I spent this much money on an Uber, because I am guilty. I spent this much money on an Uber. I spent this much on delivery. I spent this much in Sephora. I spent this much, on clothes. And you start to notice a pattern, and then you start to figure out, oh, I can cut this thing out. I can do this thing. I don't want you guys, I don't want myself to ever be ashamed, because shame is what keeps you where you are. It will make you feel bad, and then it will make you feel like you can't fix it because it's already too bad, or I'm not smart enough to get myself out of this hole. And it's not about how smart you are, you aren't. It's about giving yourself the tools, giving yourself access to things that you may not have had access to in the past. And so, yeah, I I still don't have listener letters. But if you're listening and you want to write me something, please send an email to unfilteredyaps@gmail.com. As a reminder, the letters don't have to be, the letters don't the letters don't have to be in connection to what I'm speaking about on an episode, because obviously you guys don't know the topic beforehand. But I would like to interact with you guys and, you know, give my advice on things, or, add my 2 cents, tell you what my perspective is on your situation. So please, please, please send me an email. I would appreciate it. As for the journal prompt this week, I actually have two for you guys. You can decide which one you want to go with. If you would like to dig into the root of your own money story, then I encourage you to reflect on what beliefs about money did you inherit from family, from culture, from community, and of the things that you inherited, what no longer serves you. So, again, this was kind of what I was mentioning earlier about the survival mindset, kind of like, oh, you pay your bills and then like the rest is for you. But if you want something a little bit lighter and more celebratory of where you currently are in this moment, I encourage you to check in with, where am I already making progress with my money, even if it feels small. And this could be something as simple as, when I go to the grocery store, I make sure I check that I don't have any coupons, or um really, honestly, any, or like, I only buy new clothes during, sales, or, anything like that. I would encourage you to count as a win. And before we go, I do have one resource, and they're both resources. But the second one is more of a shout out. The first resource is, I'm imploring you guys to read. The first book I would recommend is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's very popular. There's a Netflix show. I'm not going to hold you. I didn't watch the show, but I do have the book. I have the book and it's like tabbed up. I actually need to read the book again. So please get the book, read the book, message me about reading the book. If you've read it already, if you're gonna read it, like, let's talk about it. And then the second resource, I follow the Black Broke Girl on Instagram. Love her content to pieces. It's really authentic. It is from her experience as a Black woman, as a single mom, um, who really, like, started from the bottom. Now she's here. um, like, she did not have good financial literacy, and like got herself out of it, clawed her way out of it. And she does, like, throughout the year, she'll do like challenges. She'll make little charts to show you, like, if your goal is 500, this is how much you need to save every week. This is how much you need to save every 2 weeks. This is how much you need to save every month to get yourself to that goal by the end of the year. Her content is really good. I really enjoy it. So I encourage you to check that out. And with that said, we have reached the end, friends. Thank you for yapping with me as always. I really love talking to you guys and talking about different things that I hope resonate with you, because they resonate with me. Your answers, your responses resonate with me. You please make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share. It helps me out. It gives me the motivation to keep going. And, I appreciate the love. If you want to follow the podcast, you can follow the podcast at Unfiltered Yaps on both Instagram and TikTok. If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at Shanae's Got Yaps, also on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah. Oh, please subscribe to the Substack. I will be answering the journal prompts as I always do on my Substack. I will probably answer both this week. And so, yeah, with that said, thank you so much for yapping with me today. I love chatting with you guys. Thank you so much. Bye.